Hey guys, it's Sam Limon here with another tutorial, and this time we are going to be working on our final portfolio. So now that you finished with your regular assignments, we're going to use the remaining weeks to build our final portfolio, which is the culmination of all your work in fundamentals, digital imaging, and advertising courses. So if you are enrolled in two of my classes, which some of you are, you're going to be building two portfolios. So for example, if you're in fundamentals and advertising, you will be creating a portfolio for fundamentals class, and then in the advertising class we are going to be creating a separate portfolio. At the very end, once you have finished all these courses, and you could just do one single portfolio where you bring in all your work, and all of our work that's going to be going onto our portfolio here is going to be all of our portfolio builders assignments. So none of the book work. It's just going to be all of our personal work. So consider at this moment, consider doing retouches on previous work based on any feedback. Consider adding additional assets to your portfolio based on the previous assignments, such as your CD cover art, collage, logos, etc. So any work that you have per class, go ahead and add that on. Make sure to include a cover page with your name, and a back page with some contact information. I mean, you could put that page anywhere. We're also going to be building a resume as well. That's going to be a separate video. And just think about giving these pages some design. I'm going to show you a few samples, and I'm going to post some up on Schoology. This, along with your resume, is going to be the ticket to the job. So this is what a potential employer is going to be looking at, to see your work and see what your skills are. Make sure to use the remaining time to polish up your portfolio and put your best work forward. So let me go ahead and show you one of my portfolios. I've had so many throughout the years, both as a student and as a professional. But here is one that I created. So here's a PDF. So you could get an idea based off of this. So I created a logo for myself. It's just an S and an L in that curvy fashion. So nice clean type. I did a different color name as opposed to my last name, and then I put graphic designer at the bottom. And this is the way I set it up. So for this, these are actually series posters for a show on PBS. So these are a few of the compositions that I made. So I put 3 comps up, some of my strongest pieces that I believe were my strongest pieces, and then I put some information about what it is. So I named it Key Art, and then a little descriptor at the bottom that says World on Fire, which is the name of the show, and then Key Art Concepts. And then, since this is professional work, I do not own the rights or any copyrights to any of this. I did create this this line at the bottom, so it says all work showcased herein was created by Sam Limon unless otherwise indicated, and remains the property of its respective copyright holders. So that is just to protect myself. All of your work should be original, so it's your work, so you do not need to add that. But once you start updating your portfolio in the future, within a year that you work somewhere, you're going to have a lot more pieces, and then eventually you'll phase out your student work, and then you would have to add a line like this and put up show off your work. So what I did was just a simple grid system, 3 up, and I created a background. We all know how to bring in images onto InDesign, which is where we're going to create this. So what I did was I created this blurry image in the back, which is part of this sky here. So I just pulled that image out from Photoshop and created an image of this size and set it on there, made it a little blurry. I gave these little backdrop, little drop shadow, and that was it. So let's go on to my next one. This one is just 1 up, so I used the space a little bit more. I'm following the same thing, Key Art here, Age of Nature, the title of the show, and it's a Key Art Concept, my same line down here. And what I did was I took this image right here. You could tell by the buildings and the island and the water here, so it's just like a little cropped in version of this area. And I just made it blurry so that I have some textured background to it. So that's just a creative choice I made. You could have it on white, you could have it on, you know, black, a different color. It's up to you. I'll show you how to use mockups to where you could put this poster in a real world environment. So things like that. So ultimately, it's up to you how you want to show your work off. But this is just so you know, get some ideas. The same thing here. This is a DVD case that I created for Hallmark and Cinedigm. And again, I used part of the background here. You could see where the barn is here. I removed the horses, so I created a whole separate image to use as this background. And then I put my 3D mockups here to show off my design. And the same thing with this one. You could see I removed the horse, I removed the couple here, and it is this part of the background. You can't really see the barn much, but it is here. So again, just to give it some texture. And I kind of carry the theme throughout. On this one, there was original art created that the client did not like, and it was up to us to recreate it. So this is where I wanted to show off my work, which is the one on the right, so that's why I made it bigger. And this smaller one on the left is my original art, and then I put a little note that says not created by Sam Limon. So this was the original art, and then this is what it became. So you could see I want to show off my work a little bit better, so kind of like a before and after shot. And I use the same sky in the poster to give me the sky back here. And then this one is packaging and a logo design. So what I did was I created a texture in the background based off of the logo, this You Are Loved Foods, which is just a lot of hearts, and they're kind of subtle, but they are in the background. And then I just put up my different images of the packaging. So here's one line, the first one, the second one, and then here's just separate lines that were made as well. And then I did add a little brief description, which is says logo exploration and package redesign concepts for a diabetic friendly snack. So it's always a good idea to add like a small headline to tell the viewer what this is. So there's one portfolio, and feel free to search some up. I'm also going to put some up on Schoology, so that way you could see previous students' work. And see some simple design layouts. So with that said and done, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna open up my my working folder, and I have a lot of projects in here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click and make a new folder, and I'm gonna name this portfolio just to stay organized. Especially now, because we are going to be pulling in a lot of different images, making copies of images that we previously had, or possibly doing mock-ups. So within our portfolio folder, I'm going to make another folder. Right click and make a new folder. I'm going to name this one maybe links or images. Either one works. And then I'm going to name another folder IND. Actually, let me go ahead and name these the way I used to name these in my actual working mode. Just so that I knew what these were, I'm gonna name this links and IND PDF. So basically what I had was, within this structure, I had my links folder, and these were any links or any images that are going to go into my PDF, into my InDesign file. And my InDesign file would be in here, so that was going to be my working file, and my PDF would also be saved here. And that way I had everything arranged in a way where, you know, all my links are here. I'm not linking to random files everywhere, because then if you move stuff around, it's going to get a little crazy, and you don't want to lose those links. So I do want to keep at least this main portfolio folder organized, and everything within here. Okay, so with that said and done, let's go ahead and open up our InDesign. Next thing what we have to worry about is size. So We could explore a few different options. One of them is we could do like an 8.5 by 11 letter size, and then just do the horizontal layout. So it'll actually be 8.5 inches tall by 11 inches wide. And the purpose of that would be you could print it out if you wanted to, but you know, most things are digital now, so you probably will not. So I would stick with the 16 by 9 ratio. So if you go to just online and look up 16 by 9 ratios, this is a very common screen resolution. So if we just click on here, maybe we'll find a lot of different sizes that are in that 16 by 9 proportion. So such as here, 1280 by 1023, 1024 by 768, 800 by 600, 640 by 480. So we could pick any of these. I would actually recommend probably the 1024 by 768. You could also do 1920 by 1080, but just remember your portfolio is going to get way bigger in size. So when you have your images or your files linked up to your InDesign file, you want to keep it at a manageable size. So you do not want to make it so small, 640 by 480, where you know your images might not look as sharp. And again, you do not want to make it 1920 by 1080. Your file size is going to be huge. So a good size would be the 1024 by 768. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. So I suggest do either, you know, the 8.5 by 11 or the 1024 by 768. So let me close that. Let me go back to my InDesign, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to change my units to pixels, and then I'm going to type in for the width, it's going to be 1024 by height of 768. And then we do not want to do facing pages. I'm going to start off with maybe just 3 pages for now. I could always add more later. Start on page 1. It's up to you if you want to set up a grid system now. I'm just going to, you know, freehand it for now, so to speak. Margins, I'm just going to go ahead and leave this. We could always go back and change them. This is not going to be printed, so I'm not going to add any bleed or slug area or anything like that. Automatically, when you do the 1024 width by 768 height, it's going to give me this landscape or horizontal orientation. Again, primary text frame is checked off, facing pages checked off, and I'm going to go ahead and click create. So there we go. Let me move these out of the way, just to give me a little more working space. And so there it is. And I'm going to go ahead and name this. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and go ahead and put this into your correct folder. So if you have, depending on what class you're in, you know, I'm going to go just into my portfolio folder, and then I'm going to go into that InDesign folder that I made. And I'm going to go ahead and name it Limon underscore portfolio. And if you're in fundamentals, you could add fundamentals to it. If you are in digital imaging, add digital imaging, or you know, level 2, level 3. It's up to you. Just keep it separate if you're going to be making 2 different ones. So make sure we're in our InDesign folder and go ahead and click save. I'm just going to leave it as portfolio for now. And there we go. Okay, so first things first, I want to go ahead and add a cover page. So this is where you could drop in that logo, or you could just, you know, put your name, graphic designer. So I'm going to click on my type tool, and I'm going to click and drag to create a text frame. And I'm just going to put my name on there, so Sam Limon. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and I'm going to go ahead and center it because I want it centered. And I'm going to change the font. I do not have a whole lot of fonts installed on this computer, so just keep things simple. I'm going to go with this Arial Black, and I'm going to bump up the size. Let's see what 60 looks like. Maybe I want to go a little bigger. maybe 80 is good. And I want to move this to the center. So if I go move it left and right, I'm going to use my smart guides. Once that pink line shows up, that means it is centered. And if I have my text frame here, I could also right click on it if it is selected. And I could go to text frame options. And I could do a vertical justification and align it to, see right now it's at top, so it's aligning it at the top of that text frame. I could put it at the center, and so that puts it at the center of my text frame. And I'm going to click OK. And then I want to add what I am or who I am. So I'm going to put my cursor at the end of my last name, press return or enter. And I'm going to add graphic designer. So this is obviously too big, so I'm going to triple click here. And that should select the whole line, even though there's not enough space. One thing I could also do is click on my selection tool. And if I hold Alt and drag out from this left handle, Alt or Option, and it's going to increase the size of the width. The same thing if I hold Option or Alt, and if I drag the top, it's gonna increase the top and the bottom. If I just increase this, if I just click without holding Option or Alt, it's just moving that top handle. So let me undo, that way it is perfectly centered. And now I want to triple click on graphic designer here, and I want to make that way smaller, so maybe something like that. And if I want to increase the leading here, which is the size between this first line and the second line, I could always go to my let's see, my properties panel, or I could go into my go to window and properties, and I could increase the leading here. So that's adding space there, or I could decrease it. And another way to do that is by going to window, type in tables, and if I go into my character panel, which shows up over here, I could do that right here as well. And let me go ahead and put this over here. And let's say I want to do that, color change. I could just highlight my last name, for example, and I could choose from one of the colors here. Right now, this is a new document, so there's not a whole lot of choices here. So what I could do is I could double click over here on my tools panel, double click on the fill, and I could move this around and find a color. So I could click on any of these and find something. So let's say I want to go with like a blue. I really like blues, so maybe something along these lines, and then I could add it to my CMYK swatch. So go ahead and add it and click OK. So now what it did was it added it to my swatches. So if I go to my swatches panel, it is down here at the bottom, and it tells me the color that it is. So in the future, if I just want to, let's say, make graphic designer that color, I could just highlight it and just click on this without having to go here. So let's say something like that. And again, if you wanted to add your logo, you could create that in Illustrator. You could create it in Photoshop. I recommend Illustrator, and then just put it up here. So I'll leave that up to you. So this is going to be my opening page. Let me go ahead and save it before I forget. Command or Control S. And now I'm going to go open up my pages panel, and I'm going to click on my second page. So I'm first going to start off with maybe like the independent music CD artwork that we created. So this project, the portfolio, we're going to be going back to all of our old work and bringing it in. So I'm just going to go into my Finder. I should probably open up my same folder and have 2 instances of it, because I'm going to be copying a lot of stuff into my links folder. So let me go and look for my, here it is, Independent City artwork. So if you remember when we created this, and think of this as like any of the projects that you want to put in. It's up to you what projects you want to show, which ones you don't. This would be a good time to improve some of these projects if you had ideas after the fact, or if you received feedback or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this. So I'll show you first on this one, make a copy of this JPEG. So if I hold Option or Alt and drag this down to here and let it go, now I made a copy. I want to make sure I don't just drag this. Let me undo that real quick. Make sure you do not just drag this without holding Option or Alt, because that removes it from here. And now it is set here. So we want to make a copy of it. So with all of these, I'm just going to hold Option or Alt. Now I have two copies. This one was the original one within my Independent CD artwork folder. And this is going to be the link to my JPEG. We do not want to link it from this folder to here, because if we ever move this folder around, or if we rename this, then it's no longer going to work within our InDesign file here. So that's why we want to create a separate linked folder for that JPEG. So now what I want to do is bring this into my InDesign file. I could bring it in just like this and click and drag. I could also do File Place. And I could look for my file here. So I'm going to go into my portfolio folder, go into my links and select it here, click on open, and I could click and drag. And I could simply show it off like this, add some information about it, or I could go a little bit above and beyond, and I highly recommend this, is I'm going to go to the internet and find a mock-up. So I'm going to look for a mock-up of, let's see, CD artwork, and just go down the rabbit hole here. We could find something like this. Maybe we could find free mockup. First we turn or enter. So there's going to be a little bit of work involved here. If I find some stuff, I'll post it, but if not, just go ahead and look for mockups and try to find some good ones. So maybe I'll look up for CD jewel case. And here we go, here's one. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my folder where I have my my portfolio folder, and I could go ahead and go into my downloads and then move that CD jewel case mockup zip file in here. I'm going to open it up, or unzip it or expand it. And I actually want to, let's see, hold shift, bring these into my links, just to keep organized. So this links folder is going to have everything that I need or that I'm going to make. So now what I could do is open up or check these. It has several different PSDs. So there's 1, 2, there's that one, 3, kind of like a head-on shot. We did not design the inside, but if you wanted to design an inside, you could always do that now. So we do have a couple weeks. So I'm just going to do a simple one, the very first one, the angled one. I kind of like that one. So I'm going to open up that Photoshop file. And let's see. I'm going to open up your design right here where it says Edit Me. This is a smart object. So I'm going to go ahead and open that one. So this looks like it is the square artwork. So what I could do now is I could bring in this artwork. So my JPEG that I made, the one that I copied into my links folder. Drag this in here, and notice how it almost fits. So I'm gonna just increase the size a little bit, so I could increase it here. I want it to go right up to the edge. You could always go a little bit more. I'm gonna go right up to the edge, hit return or enter. I could turn this off, make sure the edges look good, and I could go ahead and close this and save it. And there we go. It placed my artwork here. So like I said, this is a time where you could, go ahead and make any edits if you want to. The background, let's say I want to change it. So I'm looking through this smart object, or this mockup actually, and somebody created this, so I could always mess with any of these filters, any lighting, which I kind of like. The background is something I want to change, so I noticed that there is a layer, so I could double click on this and I could maybe sample a color from here. So maybe that, or maybe the orange. I say that looks pretty cool. Maybe like a lighter orange or yellow. And I could always go ahead and edit this a little bit. So something like that. I'm liking something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I don't want to save over this one.psd file. So I'm going to save it as something else. So I'm going to do File, Save As. And I'm going to save it in that same area, but I just keep it different. One hyphen, and I'm going to name this Elvis CD Art, or Elvis CD. Save that as a JPEG. Save that up as a PSD file. And then I want to do File, Save As. And I want to save it as a JPEG this time. And go ahead and save it and click OK. And then I could go ahead and close this, close up my Photoshop. So now within my links folder, I have my original JPEG, which I mentioned was okay if you want to use that. But now let's go ahead and use this, this JPEG with the mockup. So I could go in and go into my InDesign file. Let me get rid of this, delete it. Now I want to go to File, Place. And I could go into this folder, select the JPEG. You could always select the PSD file and link it here as well. However, it's going to get too big once we start adding a lot of PSDs, so that's why we want to keep our PSDs as a working file and our JPEG as something that we could show. So I want to choose my JPEG, open it, and now I could click and drag. And I could do something like that. Now I could center it. So drag it to the right, drag it down a little, try to find the those center lines. And there we go. Now one thing you notice is the size wasn't correct. So we could always go in and edit the Photoshop file to match this exact size. So we could do like the what was it, the 1024 by 768, or we could just increase the size of this. So if I hold Shift and Command, then I can increase the size of this, and it doesn't matter if it falls outside. Close this, Shift and Command, and I could always make it bigger. Just remember, if you press the letter W on your keyboard, that shows you, click away, that shows you what this is going to look like at the very end. So pressing W shows us the view, and pressing W again just has kind of like the art that goes past the edge. So I could always center it as well by clicking on here, align it horizontally, aligning it vertically. Actually, before that, we want to align the selection to the page, and then we could align it vertically and horizontally. So that centers it, and it's a little bit bigger than our page, but that's going to be good. And then if you notice right now it looks a little blurry here, we could always go to Window, or sorry, View, and then Display Performance, and we could do High Quality Display. And now that is going to give us the sharp, clear view. So that would be technically our second page. So that was our first page. This is going to be my second page. So now I could go into my layers and I could name this layer 1. I could name it background image, or let's just call it image. Press OK. And I'm going to go ahead and add another layer, and this one's going to be named type. And again, just to stay organized, and I'm going to go ahead and lock my image layer here so that now I cannot click and drag this around. Now I want to select my type layer, and I could click on my type tool, and I could create like a little paragraph or a little headline regarding on what this is. So I'm going to just click and drag at the bottom right here. So think design wise, think about like using these margins. Maybe you could do it at the bottom here, it could be at the top left, top right, and then stay consistent with the pages. So just my creative choice at the moment. I'm going to do it at the bottom right, and I'm going to name this Elvis CD artwork. Now I'm going to highlight all of this. I'm going to right align it, so I could click up here in my control panel, right align it, and then I'm gonna change the font to something else, maybe this ATC Coral, and I'm gonna bump up the size, and maybe I want to do it instead of normal. Well, this doesn't have a bold. Let me see if there's another one of these ATCs that has something bold. So there's ATC Onyx Bold, so I want to do that, and I want to make it white to stand out against the that orange. So I'm going to highlight Elvis CD artwork, and I want to change it to paper, because technically this is treating this like if it was going to go to print. So paper just means there's going to be a lack of ink here, and it's just going to be paper, which essentially is white. And I'm going to drag this down a bit from the top down, and there we go. So now if I click away, deselect everything, press W, I have a page with my mockup and a pretty cool background. So I'm going to call that page good. If you want to add, you know, a different, like a secondary title here, I could move this up, and let's call this just CD artwork, and then press return or enter, and I could say Elvis CD cover created in Photoshop or something. And I'm going to click on my selection tool. I'm going to open this up a little bit, and I'm going to double click and highlight all of this, and I'm going to change this to ATC Onyx Normal, and I'm going to bring the size down a little bit and make this a sentence. So I'm going to add a period there, and maybe a little bit smaller, and click on my selection tool, bring this to the right a little bit, bring it down a bit, and something like that. Now if I press W, there you go. This is CD artwork, and then a little bit more detailed information on what it is. So I could call that page done, go ahead and save it, and then think about our next page, what our next project that we want to add. So we'll go in here, and let's start thinking about another possible project. So if we have our for our digital imaging class, if we have any of those before or after images, we could always do like a side-by-side on something like that. So I'm going to go into my folders here. Let's see, I have my links right here for my portfolio, and then all my previous work. So I'm going to go into, I believe it was personal touch-up here. So let me find something that I completed. I know a lot of these were I just showed you, and then it was up to you how to fix it. So I believe this one has both of them. So let me go ahead and open this one up, or let me make a copy of it because I might be working on it a little bit more. So hold Option or Alt and drag this one into my links here. Let's see what else I have. Actually, instead I'm gonna do one of these that's already completed, but you could do whichever one you want, or whichever ones you want. So you could choose your favorite ones. So I believe this one had a nice improvement. So I'm gonna actually copy both of these, the JPEG and the Photoshop file. So hold Command or Control, and then select both of them, and then hold Option or Alt, and then drag both of these into my links folder. So now this one was actually my original one, so I'm going to rename this one original -original. And then this one, I had just saved the Photoshop file, so I'm going to go ahead and open up this Photoshop file within my links folder, the copy of it. And I'm going to do a file save as. And I'm going to name this one, after Unsplash, do hyphen and edited. And I'm going to save it as a JPEG because we already have our Photoshop file. So we want a JPEG, so we're going to go ahead and save it, click OK, and we can close down Photoshop. And now we have our edited and original images. So now I could go in here into my InDesign and go to File, Place. And I'm going to select, go back here into my links, and select both of my JPEGs, so the edited and the original. Hold Shift to select both of these. Click Open. Now I'm going to click and drag. Before I let go, if I press the up key on my keyboard and I keep dragging, remember I'm not letting go, it gives me a place where I could put the top and the bottom for the images, or if I press down, and now if I press to the right, since these are vertical images, I could click and drag and do this. So now it gives them to me side by side. So if I kept pressing right, it's going to give me spaces for more images, but I only have 2. So let me press left. If I press up, then it's going to give them to me in this stacked version. And if I wanted to create a grid, I could always do right as well. And so now I could add a grid. But I only have 2 images, so I'm going to do this and release. And now it gave me my images side by side. And there is a little bit of space there, so remember the image frame is just the frame, but the image doesn't go all the way to it. So I'm going to select both of these, right click, go to fitting, and then fit frame to content. So that takes the frame down to the edge of the content. So now what I want to show is the before and the after, and it actually placed this one on the left, which was the after. So I'm just want to drag this one to the right. And then I want to select both and bring them to the left. Now one thing that I noticed in my layers, this is in the type layer, so I want these in an image layer. So I'm going to unlock my image layer, grab these, that make sure they're selected first of all, and grab this little red icon here. So it tells me what the selected items are, and drag these down to image. So now they are in the image layer, and we could see it changes to blue. And then we could always drag these and center them. And I actually want to put them just a little above center. to give me space to type in the bottom here. So now what I want to do is I want to go up to this page and I want to select this type here. Select it, Command or Control C to copy it. Now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click on this page, Command or Control V to paste it. And I'm going to move it down. Can't really see what it says. Let me press W. I forgot to get out of that mode. And move it out here so I could see it. We can't see it because it is against white. So now I could highlight all of this and I'm just going to choose black or yeah, just choose black. Select this and I'm going to make a copy of this. So I'm going to hold Option or Alt and drag this to the left. Now I want to get rid of this line. So I'm going to do backspace, backspace again. And I'm going to move this down just to keep it pretty close to the to that margin. And I'm going to name this Photo Retouch. And now I'm going to use this one and delete the CD artwork here. And I'm going to name this, do a before. And resize this just a little bit. I don't want to go too small because then I'll lose it. And I'm going to line this up on the right here since it is right aligned. I could always center it or put it on the left. Now I could hold Option or Alt to make a copy of this. Now I'm holding Option or Alt, and if I hold Shift as well, I could drag it to the right and it snaps to the right edge here, and I could name this After. And let me zoom out. And there we go. So we could show off this page now. So press W, and now I can see what that is going to look like. So I can see the before and the after. This tells me what it is. It's a photo retouch. And there's another one. So feel free to add, you know, all the files from your class, and you know, keep adding to your portfolio. Let's go ahead and add another page. So go to my Pages panel, and I'm going to go ahead and click on this little plus icon to create a new page. Let me zoom out a little, press W so I could see my margins, and actually let me save it. So Command or Control S. Actually, let's go back and give this image or this page a background. So I can see that there's like a nice background here. It's like some blurry grass or something. So maybe we could do something similar as the background here. So one thing to keep in mind is the size of our page. So it's going to be that 1024 by 768. So we could always go into Photoshop and make a new page. So I'm going to go File, New, or actually make a new document. And I could do a 1024 by 768, make it a resolution of 300 pixels per inch, and go ahead and do RGB color, and go ahead and click on Create. If you happen to do a 8.5 by 11 size, then that's what you're going to put here. And then I'm just going to do Create. So now I'm going to go online and look for an image that has that similar background as that. So let me go to unsplash.com, and I could do a search for a yellow grass background, and in that case it could be anything, you know, sort of naturey that will go along with that. Doesn't have to be exact. Or maybe just nature background. So I'm going to try something like this. This might look pretty nice. This might look pretty nice too. So let me go ahead and download this one. And let me go into my files here. Let's see, I want to go right into my portfolio and links folders, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get that image from my downloads, put it in here. Now I could open this one in Photoshop, so I can drag this to Photoshop, and I could drag it from here onto that page that I made. It's going to be huge, so I'm going to do Command or Control T and resize it down. And think of this as like your whole background, so this is what it's going to look like. Press Return or Enter. Now I'm going to make it a smart object, that way I could control the blur of it. So I'm going to right click and convert to smart object right here. And I'm just going to name it background. And I should save this file, so I'm going to go to File, Save As. And I'm going to name it what it is. So it's going to be our background for our retouched image. So photo retouch. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop and I'm going to name this photo retouch BG background. So just something so that you know what it is if you ever want to go back and change it. And I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. This is going to be my working file. So now I actually want to blur it. So I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to increase the blur on it. Maybe like 5 pixels about. And I'm going to call that good. I'm going to save it, so Command or Control S. And the good thing about it being a smart object, if you wouldn't have done this, then it would have permanently changed that image. But like this, we could always turn this off and on, or we could double click on this smart filter or Gaussian blur here, and I could change it again if I wanted to. So let me do cancel. So I want to save this again, so save it as a Photoshop file. Now I'm going to do a File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as a JPEG. Save it within my links folder. Click OK. So now in my links folder, I should have the two files. I should have my original Unsplash JPEG here, and then I have my photo retouch background JPEG and my Photoshop file. So let me get rid of these two. So now I could go into my InDesign file and we'll see how it looks. It might work, it might not. So I could always, leave it like this, or I could go to File, Place. First of all, make sure I am on my type layer. On my image layer. I want it to go in there, and then I'm going to go to File, Place. And I'm going to look for the JPEG. Click on Open and just click and place it. And now we see that it is super small, so I could just line it up at the top left corner and hold Command or Control and Shift at the same time, and I could drag this. So what that's going to do is it's going to resize both the image frame and the image within it. And I'm going to take it up all the way to this edge. Now if you notice the size, it went up to the 1024 by 768, so it's taking up that whole the whole size of this page. And now what I want to do is drag this one below both images, and there we go. So yeah, that looks okay. I would have liked a better matching image, so you could always find something else, but this is essentially what I did with my personal portfolio. And now it's a matter of checking out the type, if it's legible. If not, we could always change the image a little bit. So let me go ahead and do that. Let me make it a little lighter, actually, that way the black from the type here pops. So let me go back to my Photoshop and let me go ahead and add an adjustment layer. So I could always increase some brightness, increase the contrast, and so that changes it to that. And let me add some vibrance or some hue and saturation. So I'm going to increase the saturation a little bit. And now let's look at the difference. So I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to save it. That saves the Photoshop file. And then I'm going to do the file save as. And I'm going to save over this JPEG. So I'm going to change this to a JPEG. Save it. And Photoshop asks me if I want to replace it. So I'm going to go ahead and replace it. Click OK. Now if I go into InDesign, since the name of the file is the same, all I have to do is update the link by clicking up here. Or if I go into my links panel, this tells me that it has a warning, so that tells me it's modified. So I could just double click and it updates it. So I think that looks a little better. And you could always come back and kind of match this area if you wanted to add, let's say, a little bit of white or something to make it look a little nicer. So I'm going to call that good. And another thing we could do is we could always select one of these images and we could add effects up here. So we could do here and do a drop shadow. And we could turn on the preview. And that gives us a drop shadow. So we could do, typically we'll do like a black multiply. So we could change it here, multiply, we could change the color to black. And I'm going to knock this down just a little bit. So maybe like at about a 40%. And I could always change the distance here, the X and Y offset, so how far to the right, how far down. I'm going to call that one good and click OK. And I could do the same thing to this other one. So I'm going to go to select it, click on the effects up here, do the drop shadow. Make sure all the settings are the same, and I had an opacity of 40 about, and I'm going to click OK. And there we go. So now if I press W, I could preview it. One thing that's bugging me is I have a lot of empty space on the left and the right, and it's really tight here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this image on the left, hold shift and select the before. Then hold shift and do the left arrow 1, 2, 3 times. Now if I move this to the left 3 times, I'm going to do the same thing to the right. So I'm going to select this image, hold shift, click on after, and then hold shift, and then 1, 2, 3 right clicks. So that gives me a little bit more space there. And I think I do want to make the background lighter again, so this is just fine tuning. Let me do this real quick. I'm gonna do a solid adjustment layer of white, and let me go to maybe lighten and change the opacity down a bit, so maybe about 25%, so kind of like that. Save it and then save the JPEG. So file save as JPEG, save it, replace it, and go to InDesign, and let me go ahead and update this. So if I press W, I can press on this, and there we go. I like that better. So it's not as pronounced, but I still have like a nice background texture. So that's how we could do that. So now all of these are going to have a background, or you could leave it white, like I said. And then, so just keep doing that with all of your projects, the projects that you want to show. It's up to you how you want to lay them out. I just say be consistent with your type. So notice how this type is the same as this. You want to keep it consistent. In this case, I probably should go back and change this to this font. If you use, I would say use a maximum of 2 to 3 fonts. And usually it's like a headline might be one font, and then the secondary headline might be a different font. So that would give you 2. So I'd try to keep it at a maximum of 2 to 3 different fonts. This one's completely different, so that throws it off. So I'm gonna change it. So this font was ATC Onyx Bold. So I could do that here. So I'm gonna change it to ATC Onyx Bold. And I'm going to change this one to ATC Onyx and maybe normal on this. And now if I want to spread out the tracking, I could just go into my character panel and increase it right here just to give it a little space, and something like that should be good. And that pretty much sums it up. So you could either find mock-ups for your page, or you could just bring in the images by themselves, and then either create your own background or leave no background at all. It's up to you, totally up to you. And at the end, we're just gonna do a thank you page. So I'm gonna copy this, Command or Control C, and then over here on our last page, we're gonna do Command or Control Shift and Option or Alt and V, and what that's gonna do is paste it in place. Now we could do a quick thank you. So I want to use both the black and the blue. So I'm gonna put thank, highlight this, and then you. And that would simply be it. If you wanted to add some information at the bottom here, you know, such as maybe your email down here or a phone number, that would be great too. So let me actually create another type box here. And I'm going to copy this just so I could have my fonts here. And I'm going to change this to normal and bring my size down. And I'm going to do my email. So I'm going to do my school email. You would probably be doing your personal email. So I would highlight all this, make this left aligned, and I would bring this to the bottom left, line it up down here, and then I would copy this. So hold Option or Alt and drag it, move this to the right, and then I would highlight this and make it right aligned. That way it sits on the right. And then I would add my phone number. So and that is obviously a made-up number, but you know, you could do something like that, so that way an employer could contact you. Okay, so that would pretty much sum it all up. So once you're done with this, you could export it. So let's go ahead and save it and do a file export. One thing to note, just real quick, let's say if you wanted to do a background on this, you could always do a solid background or a gradient here as well. But let's say you wanted to make this last page, you wanted to add a solid color, so I could click on my rectangle tool and I could drag and make a rectangle here. And let's say I wanted to actually make it this blue, so I could select on my color, make it this blue, and then make sure it has no outline. And then I want to drag it underneath all of this. Now the one thing that I noticed is I did place these, just got to keep an eye out for these. This is all type, so all of these should go into the type layer. So now I could lock this, and then I could double click here. I know I have the U here, so I'm going to change that to white or paper, and I'm going to do that to this as well, paper. And another way you could do this is if you select this, go into my properties panel, and I could do it to this one as well. And there we go. So that would be my last page. So now I can save it and then I could export it. So what I'm going to do is go to File, Export. And I want to make sure it goes into my InDesign PDF folder. So that's where I'm going to have like my essentially working files and all my links. My big mess is going to be in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it. Make sure it's Adobe PDF for print. Save it. And we want to make sure we export it as pages, not spreads. And I always like to have this view PDF after exporting. That way it shows it right away. Once you export it, it'll pop up. Compression, I wouldn't mess with any of these. Marks and bleeds, make sure all of these are off since it's not going to be printed. We don't need any of those marks and bleeds. We don't want those showing up. That is specifically if it is going to print and if you're going to trim it and all that stuff. So make sure all of these are off, and all of these we can just leave and go ahead and click on export and give it a second. It's doing its thing, and here we have it. Here is my portfolio. So now I could go down the pages and I could see, for example, on this one, let's say it's a little too small. I could go and resize that if I wanted to. And there's that page. And obviously you're going to have several different pages with all your work. So, and lastly, you'll have your thank you page with some information. And that is going to be the file that you turn in. So you're going to go into your portfolio folder, your InDesign and PDF file or folder, sorry. So this PDF is what you will be turning into Schoology. I really can't wait to see these. It's the culmination of all of our great work throughout the semester. So it should be exciting to see everything all put together in one final PDF for a presentation. So thank you once again, and congratulations.